it's an exciting and a depressing time to be a, a musician and a songwriter. But from a creative standpoint, what Ben Folds says is right. There's nothing standing in the way of your ability to express yourself and have it out there. You know, there is something sort of, in a way, Ben Folds feels like one of the last, like the last generation of songwriters that could have the kind of career that he has.
Rob Ruckus,
Nick Collins,
Kate Clover,
Keith Semple,
Isaiah Mitchell,
Billy Harvey,
Tim Howard. Check it out, Almost Famous Magazine.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Hang, brought to you by Almost Famous Magazine. I'm your host, Scott Saldinger, and we're the place to come to hang with artists to get to know their stories well beyond their music. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe, share, leave comments below. You know everything you got to do. You've been here, done that. And if you've been with us before, you're coming back, you haven't recommended us to your friends, why not? Come on, we could all use a little help in life. Also, if you prefer to take your podcast audio only on the go, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and everywhere you find your audio podcasts. Today on The Hang, we've got Andras Jones, is a singer, actor, author, podcaster, creator of Radio 8 Ball, a musical divination show that turns songs into conversation, synchronicity, and surprise. I'm surprised myself that I got through that entire sentence without one error. Known to many from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and Saved by the Bell, Andras has spent decades building a fiercely original catalog from albums like Recognize, De-Escalate, and Decodetto. I think I got
Decode.
it right. Decodetto?
Decode.
Decode. Oh, Decode. Okay. Oh, Decode. 2 new singles. Okay. Am I going too fast? Now, if I can say this one 3 times fast, I think I deserve a prize. He's got a new single. One of them includes Semiquincentennial. Did I get it?
Semiquincentennial. Yes.
Awesome. I Saw Them Everywhere, Hating the Haters, and Traveling Companions. Today on The Hang, we're going to talk about his shift from like an album artist into like song of the month. I mean, he's putting out singles all the time. The strange timing of America's 250th birthday, and what happens when a lifelong storyteller keeps finding new ways to decode the moment. Andras, welcome to The Hang, my friend.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. And a quick shout out to my friend and often collaborator, Fernando Perdomo, for introducing us.
Absolutely. Great guest, great guitarist, amazing human being. So I appreciate him sending you my way, as a matter of fact. We tend to start these conversations in one place and then see where we go.
Okay.
So everyone has an origin story. I want you to take me back to how your relationship with music began. Did you find music or did music find you? And tell me the story of what's gotten you to where you are today.
Wow, that's a lot. Did I find music or did music find me? We met around a turntable when I was very young, and I guess there's the experience of music as a listener, which for me, the great realization was how music could bend time. How, like, when you're a kid, having to wait half an hour for something seems like an eternity. But I found that if I put on one of my parents' Beatles records, it would just be over. I put it on and then it'd be time to go, it was an amazing, that was an amazing first sort of magical realization about music. And then when I was a kid, I'd walking home from school, I'd be making up songs, singing lyrics to songs that I knew, but making up lyrics about things in my own life. I think, like a lot of people, I fell into art, into expressing, writing music, because there are things that I didn't feel like I could express in the real world, in conversation, or to the people in my life who I wanted to say things to, that just I felt like I couldn't get through to them. or in the world that I couldn't get through. So it's like a source of um, like a thwarted desire to connect, and music creates the avenue for at least the feeling of the possibility of that connection. The promise of that connection is there. And I think I've just been just pulling along that chord my whole musical life since then. I guess the one sort of connecting piece there is that the realization that I was a songwriter sort of came about because I was when I was first learning to play guitar and learn other people's songs, I'd play songs for other people, and either because I wasn't a very good performer yet, or because my tastes were more obscure than my classmates of the 80s, and I was playing songs from the 70s that they didn't know, they'd ask me who that was. And I figured, well, if they don't know who it is, if I just sing the same song, but I change the lyrics and sing about something from my own standpoint, then it's my song. And then as you start to do that, you start to realize, well, even if you like, I'm not going to, once you start taking it out of it being the context of like, I'm just singing over a Beatles song to, well, now I'm changing, since I'm not doing a Beatles song, I'm changing chords, I'm changing things, and it really does become your thing. And then over years, you develop your own style out of that. So I think that's my answer to your question.
Oh, that's a great place for us to start the conversation. I will tell you, there's some similarity between us because I used to. I remember going back in time, probably I don't know, maybe I was married, maybe it was after that, but always singing in the car and rewriting the lyrics in real time and just telling the person who's with me that those were the unreleased. What I'm singing are the unreleased lyrics. Obviously not good enough for either the radio or back then I think CDs and tapes. So I can totally sympathize with what you were doing there to find a way to express yourself. Right? It is challenging sometimes to figure out how to express what's going on inside and finding an artistic way to do that, whether it is through a physical craft, such as painting, clay, to 3D art, to using your mind and having a relationship with a pen, paper, and words. It's an extremely satisfying thing. As you were walking home, making up lyrics to songs you knew, what then got you to I need to pick up an instrument, and what was the experience of learning that craft like for you? Was it something that came naturally? Was it a lot of work? Was it self-taught? Walk me through that story.
Well, it's kind of an interesting story because I grew up as a kid, my family wanted me to have a musical background to like be practiced in different things. So I had piano lessons, I had guitar lessons, and then when I was in middle school, I played in the band. So I played trumpet or yeah, cornet, not trumpet, and through all of that, when I look back on that, it's none of it strikes me as what I experience as music. I was learning notes. I was doing things disconnected from any sense of inspiration or connection to what I was enjoying of the music coming off of the turntables. They were seemed like completely different things. Um, and then when I was a freshman in high school, some things happened in my life. I moved to a new school. I was feeling pretty lonely and isolated. I discovered The Who and got really, really into The Who and to Pete Townshend. And at that point, I decided, I remember I was on a plane. I was going to visit my father. I had The Who Maximum R&B book, and I was going through it on the plane, and I just had this just bolt of realization. Like, I have to learn how to play guitar. And it just was right. I knew it immediately. Like, I have to, I had to get a job and earn the money to buy my own guitar. And then I need to find a teacher who will just teach me the songs I want to learn. And if I do that, then I'll be able to do this thing. And I did it. Basically, I worked for this guy down the street, a guy who An interesting guy. This was in Massachusetts, and he had been the swim coach at Harvard and had coached Jack Lemmon and Johnny Weissmuller. So give you a sense of how old he was. And he put me to work in his backyard, and I think over the course of like a month, I earned $300 or 300, some amount of money that I could buy a little Ibanez acoustic, and I still have it. And I found a teacher and I brought them. I said, I want to learn how to play Behind Blue Eyes. You got it. That's what I want to learn how to play. And they're like, I can get you there, but you need to learn two other songs first. Yeah, and one of them was We Can Work It Out, and the other was something else. I don't remember what it was, but he said, if you can get these two, and do you like these songs? Yeah, I like these songs. Okay, then, and I keep saying it's a he. It was a woman. She was the teacher, and she was great, and she really helped me to have music that I wanted to play, and to not try and force me to be a musician in the sense of what everything, all that other previous experience had been for me. And since then, it's never stopped. Once I was able to play songs that I wanted to play, I've never wanted to stop playing guitar. But before that, like, I had access to a lot of musical resources, but none of them ever made it fun or connected it to my life. So maybe that's a lesson for other people that's useful to other people who are coming up and learning music, is that it really is important to connect the instrument to the songs that whoever you are, that you want to play and you want to sing, because otherwise it just doesn't even feel like music.
It's funny you mention that. Forget the fact that we're both northeast guys. I was born and raised in New York, and I'm based in Dallas, Texas. But I started out playing trumpet, and I never felt connected, because you're playing an instrument like that. You're kind of playing a piece of the song, and it wasn't until I picked up a guitar and started kind of thrashing away that I'm like, okay, I can actually make the noise of the entire chord, and then I can use my voice to add to it and make it my own. And that's when I started to feel that connective tissue starting to grow. Not that I've been a great a guitar player, but the ability just to do that and to get from start to finish and participate in the whole song changed it dramatically for me. And I went down a similar path. I went and found a guitar player or a guitar teacher. I'm like, I just want to learn these. This is what I want. I want that. I want these, right? So it's like, geez, I gotta learn scales. I got to apply some music theory. All this stuff. I'm like, no, I just want to know the right chords and notes to play in order to get through and make the music I want to. So I totally know what your shoes were like in that period of your life. So you grew up in the Northeast, you got a guitar, you started. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. I grew up in Olympia, Washington. My family's from the Northeast, and right before high school, my mom
Oh,
moved back east. So I consider myself an Olympian, but
ah,
with deep roots in Massachusetts.
all right. Look, there's nothing wrong with calling Massachusetts home, and you've experienced both coasts. There's one thing we could talk about that is not even music related, but I have this thing about a northeastern grown apple and a western grown apple, and the difference between them, because they certainly taste different because of the and look different because of the growing seasons. But that's a tangent for another time.
Apple nerds. I
But
go, okay, this is good. This is good.
you know what I'm
Washingtonians
talking
and
about, though.
well, Washingtonians and folks from Massachusetts both have very strong feelings about their apples. So I happen to be in both camps. I'm an appreciator of both the Northeast and the Northwest apple.
See now, okay, so why not? We're just gonna riff along here. My theory is this: in the Northeast, those are some rough growing season. It's rough weather. It's very hit and miss. And the apples, although they tend to not be very pretty on the outside, they've got a taste about them. Maybe it's the water, maybe it's the atmosphere, whatever. On West Coast Washington State apples tend to look amazing, but they're not as flavorful on the inside for some reason. And I've never been able to figure it out. And living in Texas, I can't get New York State apples, but I can get Washington State apples. So I either have to ship them down from New York, but to me, there's a distinct taste difference and a look
Well,
difference.
see, I think your palate might be a little bit more sophisticated than mine, Apple wise.
You know,
I
we all have different experiences.
Yeah, no, I don't fetishize the apple in that way. I mean, I probably should. When I was a kid, I remember, I did most of my apple, like wild apple hunting as a child in Washington, and those were not pretty apples. They were hard little green things that were kind
Oh,
of
the little crab
sour.
apples.
Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah.
you're a kid. Yeah, if you can pull it off a tree and eat it, you do. Or, we did back in those days. Now I'm
Yeah.
sure no one does.
You know, now the way that they grow things, which is a whole other conversation. I'd rather them be heavily washed and sanitized before they even reach me. Although I think something growing in the wild might have less pesticides. But we're here to talk about your music today, so let's get back on track because we could probably still go down that path. Let's talk about your musical career. You've put out albums, but you've recently really kind of made an effort to say, okay, I'm just going to do this. You know, I'm just going to produce this stuff and get it out on the regular. What what brought about that transformation for you to change how you're creating and putting out your music?
Well, I would say at first it was the world that changed. The way that people put out music and consume music. So I I had taken I spent from 19 well since I got out of high school in 86 until about 2004 making records, constantly in the making records and touring and doing the whole indie thing with my band and then solo. And during that time I probably put out with three, four, five full albums and three EPs, and it was, that was what you did back then. I was very proud. We were one of the first bands that I knew, the second band that I knew that had our own self-produced CD, and this was in LA. So we were sort of at the head of that technology and at the ability to make an album on your own for what you could afford, for like a few $1,000s and not have to go through a record label. Um, but then in 2004, some things happened in my life. I took a step away, and that step away ended up lasting about 15 years, doing other things, developing the Radio 8 Ball show, which we could talk about, um, writing a book, working for other artists in a sort of a more of a supportive capacity, either as a manager or as a booking agent, um, and and it just worked as a bartender pretty much. And then I had a record that had been sitting on a hard drive in Canada for over a decade, and luckily the guy had saved it, and I got it back from him, and that record became All You Get, which is what came out I think in 2018 probably, and that freed me up to start working on new music, and so it felt very natural to start working towards the next record, which became Recognize, De-Escalate, Decode, and that was a really good experience. But then as I realized the world that I was dropping them into, it just sort of, I realized that singles were where the market is, where it, and that sounds like at first like it's a sad, like when I tell people that, it sounds like, oh, that's sad, the loss of the album. But I didn't realize, and this is the thing that has really inspired me about it, is I love the album as an art form, and I love consuming, like having a relationship with the full album, and I love as a creator writing like operatically in that sense. Um, but as a songwriter, I can't help but look back now on all those albums as kind of like song graveyards, where like I'm doing it indie, so already the album gets very little attention, and then I'm going to push one single or maybe a second single from that album, and then all the other songs, which I care really passionately about, some that I like way more than what I would push as a single, just become part of, I don't know, some sort of historical record, I guess. Um, but here in the realm of singles, putting out of every song as a single, every song gets its own attention. What I like to say to my friends who are artists is like, just think about it. Every song you have to think about the cover, not just the cover of your album, but every song. What is the image that you want to associate it with? And then what are the video, what sort of the video components that you'd want to create to share the vibe of it with? And when you're doing singles, you can kind of do that John Lennon sort of style of, writing a song to the moment and getting it out. And, that might be a sort of a historical, political thing, or I've just found that like I'll write a song, like my new single, Semiquincentennial, which is the 250th anniversary of anything, but in this case, the United States. Um, I wrote that because I got booked for a gig on this July 4th weekend in Portland. I wrote the song last month. We recorded it. It's coming out on the summer solstice. It's jumped ahead of other singles that I had in the production line because the inspiration and the moment just happened. And that's a lot more exciting creatively right now than the idea of working very hard on a thing for 2 or 3 years that then when it comes out, it might not be, you're sort of forcing that on the moment. Um, and I could still see collecting, if I wanted these songs to be documented, if I wanted to put together a collection of these songs, I could still do that in the future. Although I have plenty of copies of All You Get and Recognize, De-Escalate, and Decode. If you want a full album, I've got them for you. But I also have singles for the next, like if I wanted to put out a single every month for the next year, I wouldn't have to dip into my back catalog at all because I'm just constantly, I work with Fernando. He's a fantastic collaborator. If you ever have a chance to work with him, he has a great studio in Sherman Oaks, and I'll go in there with the song and I'll walk out of there 3 hours later with a song with drums, bass, guitar, some interesting keyboards that I can then, and percussion that I can then come back and play with. He's not very precious, and I do my editing thing, but that gives me a tremendous amount of freedom to try out something and throw it away if it doesn't work, or try out something and then move on it if it does. In the case of this song, Semiquincentennial. So yeah, I think there's a lot that's wrong with the music business right now, but the idea that we've come back around to the singles as a medium, I think that should be really, really exciting to songwriters. Um, Not to business people or to people who want to have careers in the music business, but as a songwriter, if you want your song to get the kind of attention that it deserves, singles is such a massive step up from albums. Um, I think maybe albums, yeah, better for artists if you have a huge following. But yeah, that's how I got to where I am now, and I'm loving it.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, it's interesting. I remember Ben Folds back, so we can age ourselves in the Napster days. Began talking about, you know, he just had this urge to get this music out there, and he goes, "Look, I can write a song today, work on it overnight, and put it on iTunes the very next day on my schedule, on my time when I want to say what I want to say." And he's now since basically said that he doesn't even feel he has an album in him
Hmm.
anymore. He if he makes new music, he's just going to make it and put it out. And I think that, although I agree, I missed that album experience. There was something about the sense and touch, and then even as albums aged in a room, and it's like, smells like a record store type of thing, right? That always gives you that throwback to when you were younger, going to a record store. um Being able to embrace something new and different, I think is impacts you in a multitude of ways, because not only are you willing to try something new to get your efforts out there, but it also speaks to you probably willing to try something new creatively for that as well, as opposed to just putting out the same type of output, because we're impacted by life daily and we evolve daily. So I applaud you for embracing that, for sure.
Well, it's an exciting
It's an exciting and a depressing
time to be
a
musician and a songwriter.
From a
Creative standpoint,
what
what Ben Folds says is right. There's nothing standing in the way of your ability to
express yourself
and have it out there.
You know,
There is something
in a way, Ben Folds
feels like one of the last
like
the last generation of
songwriters
songwriters
that
could have the kind of career
that he
has.
I'm sure
there are probably others who are. I'm
revealing
my
my
old.
for what it's worth, we graduated high school the same year, so don't
Yeah.
worry about it. We're simpatico. Let's do this. Let's kind of tell everybody about some of these songs, and then I've got a follow up once we get to know the new stuff. But where tell me the story of Semiquincentennial. Where did it come from for you? What does it mean to you, and the development of the song?
Well, like I was saying, I wrote it for this. I was inspired to write it for this gig that I'm playing on 4th of July. Interestingly, the club that had booked me for that ended up pulling the plug on that, but I just rebooked, and I have another show, a different show in Portland, at a cooler venue called Dante's. Put it on your calendar, 4th of July. If you're in Portland, come out and see us. But I guess what's interesting about it is I have been, for the last year, I was invited to start, about a year ago, I was invited to come to this blues jam in a club in South Central LA. That, I had forgotten how big the blues were for me when I was coming in up, and I just sort of had this idea of, oh, blues is just a lot of guys playing too loud, a lot of solos, and just like, sort of a machismo thing. And my friend was like, no, that's not what this is. Everyone here is very old. I was like, okay, well, now I'm interested in old musicians are good musicians. They've been doing it a long time. And whatever attitude they have is like the real pure attitude, not what I deal with a lot of times in Hollywood. So I was like, okay. And I was like, but of course, I'm like a white face walking this thing. Are they gonna, like, I'm telling my friend, are they gonna want me to be there? He's like, no, not at all. You're gonna be. So I walk in, I bring my guitar. I don't know if you spent much time in LA or in Hollywood, but you walk into some place with the guitar, most people are gonna be, it's like in clubs, they're gonna treat you like you're walking in with a sidearm. Like, what do you expect to do with that thing, sir? We do not. No. Were you invited to bring a guitar? It's no. Don't even think. Just leave it in the car. Okay. This was not the attitude. Everyone, I was incredibly welcomed. And it's this amazing blues scene out of a club called MJ's Unique Social Club is what it's called. And every Sunday night, they feed everyone. They that you pay as a musician, you pay $5 if you're going to play. If you're not going to play, you pay $8. They feed everyone. They expect you to play. The band is great. Again, they're not quite as old as the headliners, who are like these guys who are in their 70s, who've been making records for like 50 years. But they're all, these are young guys in their 60s. And and basically, the rule is you got to play with the band. So as a songwriter, I had to start writing. I had to either come and sing songs that they knew, or I had to start writing songs that I could teach to the band, like cue it right there. Like, I'm going to play the intro, and if you get the intro, then you can follow the whole song. And Semiquincentennial is kind of like the perfect one. Like, I only know it's the perfect if I bring it there, because sometimes I bring something that I think is simple and it crashes and burns because it's not as simple as I think it is. I don't know if you as a songwriter, you might think, oh, it's just this, but then they're like, no, but you do this one weird thing that if I don't know it, it's going to mess it up. But this one just came together the first time I played it with the band. I was like, oh, well, this one just sits really nicely. And so from that step of like, maybe I should write a song for this gig I'm playing on 4th of July. And Semiquincentennial, I think, is a. I always like to have get words into a song that you don't hear in songs very often. You know, it's the They Might Be Giants, Tom Lehrer, Gilbert and Sullivan fan in me, Cole Porter, you know, those kind of songwriters. Um, and so there's that, and then being able to take this and drop it into this thing that any band can play along with me on. That also felt really good. And then, you know, I bring it into the studio with Fernando. We knock it out in a day in terms of his part. And then I just get to add little doses of, there's a great singing. Do you know an artist named Adron? She,
Sounds familiar, but I'm not
uh,
remembering off the top of my head.
she's based in here in LA, but she's out of Atlanta. She has a phenomenal voice, but sort of like her special trick is she's a real deal whistler, like like a like that kind of Harry Nilsson. Like you hire her to whistle on your stuff, it sounds so good. Um, so but she's also a great singer, and she just laid down some fantastic vocals on this. And I got my friend Sylvain Carton to play a saxophone part on it, and then it's just sort of like, but I know it's coming out fast, so we had to make a lot of production decisions, on the fly, and we'll see if people respond to it. But that's how we come to Semiquincentennial, to celebrate this. Well, I don't want to say celebrate, to mark the 250th anniversary of this grand experiment.
I think we can set a pin right in that, and I think that's a great way of putting it. Tell me about I Saw Them Everywhere.
Now that's like completely opposite. So thinking of singles. So this is a song that I recorded. I must have written it back in 2003, 2002, 2003, and I must have played it just a few times. It ended up being recorded on a live recording that ended up in my archives. And when I started working with Fernando, I sent him a big list of songs like, hey, check out these songs. Where, is there anything that inspires you? We can just, because I didn't know how we were going to work. And I remember he said, well, I think that one is one you might want to focus on. And I did, and I realized, oh, I really love this song. Um, it's an odd story. It's about someone who has some sort of experience while changing a light bulb that uh, allows them to see them everywhere. We don't know what the them that they're seeing, but they were electrocuted, or they had a traumatic shock experience, or maybe they were abducted by aliens. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Maybe they fell through a
So,
wormhole.
so
But
that
was it?
shock,
Yeah,
that shock opened their vision in
opened
whatever
their
vision
vision.
is.
Yeah, the doors of perception flew wide open for a moment, and the whole song sort of takes place in between the shock and them landing on the ground, and it's a mystery song. But so that's what the song is about. But from a production standpoint, the great part was that I got to have Pete Thomas of the Attractions record drums on it. And Elvis Costello was a major, major turning point in my evolution as a songwriter when he came into my life. I feel like that's when I really like, yeah, when my songwriting craft. But the combination of that, and I also used to play a lot of open mics with Dan Byrne. I don't know if you know Dan Byrne, great songwriter. But the combination of knowing Dan and discovering Elvis Costello was a real big like up leveling of my songcraft. So having Pete Thomas on the record was great. Also, there's a fantastic, speaking of Ben Folds, Ross Guerin, who plays harmonica with Ben, plays a bass harmonica part on the song that I really love, and I think we would have had anyway. But it's also possible that the passing of Brian Wilson, while we were working on that song, had me thinking about bass harmonicas and pet sounds, and Ross did like if you listen to the track, Ross is I think that's kind of become the MVP of the track. But I love it. It's a like I feel as I'm developing as a songwriter, my need to have the song express a kind of aggression that I need to push energy through is going, and that I think that song might be the sort of touchstone at the beginning of me feeling like, hey, maybe I could just sing all the songs right about here where I talk instead of having to, you know, which feels great, and it's nice to have that level, but I prefer now to listen to someone just singing to me. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's I saw
I
them
hear what you
everywhere.
say. I hear what you're saying, and I mean Elvis Costello, huge fan, majorly love his influence on songwriting, and guys like him. I mean, you know, we I think we have fewer amazing wordsmiths these days than we used to. I guess it's the most polite way to put it. You know, I think back to those times, Elvis Costello's early stuff, his work with Nick Lowe. If you want to talk about a man who could write a lyric, Nick Lowe is just absolutely an incredible lyricist, and the people who really put that time and effort to create that story of the mind and tell a story. It just helps in that connective tissue to the feeling you have from music, and I could totally appreciate where you're coming with that. Um, I look at a person's catalog, right? And we've got people joining us today who may have not heard anything in your entire catalog, right?
Probably haven't.
So I look at the catalog, and this I think will resonate, especially since your perspective now is to, create it and get it out there. As a meal, right? When you love an artist, you learn to love it like you love a good meal. If Are there a couple of songs in your catalog, and as always we'll have links down below, people can find all your work, but there are like a couple of songs, maybe two or three, that you feel are the best appetizer for that meal, the two or three that, like, if people hear these first, they're going to get me, and then enjoy, and then continue for the rest of the meal, right? Like, what's the palette setter of a couple of songs that you really feel best encapsulate who you are as an artist and represent that to others?
Ooh, that's a tough one, but I will try to take it on. The first one I'm very confident about. It's the opening track on my record, All You Get. Um, it's one of those songs that it says everything that I want to say in songs mostly, and it's very, very true and personal to me, but it's really unlike anything else I've written. It has a unique quality. I don't think I could rewrite that song. And also, it's a great entryway into that record. Uh, so if you like that song, it would just lead you into that whole record, which is a good way to get to know me. Um, it's odd. I don't really want to pick this one, but I feel like I have to. Um, it's a song from my last record, Recognize, De-Escalate, and Decode. It's called Absolutely No Sense of Humor. It really balances the All You Get, the feeling of what All You Get does, which is a very welcoming and a sort of a universal kind of message. Whereas Absolutely No Sense of Humor is definitely a personal, angry, clever, potentially mean rock and roll song. Mean but it's picking on a bully. So how mean can you be? Um, and fighting with bullies is a big theme in my work. So I think and also that's at the heart of my record, Recognize, De-Escalate, Decode, which I think, so both of those are like singles in the traditional sense, that if you listen to them and they end up being an entryway, you like that song, it can be an entryway into those albums, which is a good way to get to know me as an artist. And then, hmm, I guess I would have to say I saw them everywhere. Um, it it's sort of, yeah, it's kind of a road to nowhere. Like it doesn't lead you into any larger project. Um, but I think it's just I think it's a beautiful track. It might be the best, some sort of the best produced thing that I've done so far. Uh, thanks to Pete Thomas's drums and Fernando's engineering and my friend R. Walt Vincent and his mixing. Worked with a lot of just like Ross. Like there's a lot of talent that has gone into making that a special track, and I think it is a special song because it's not one that was written for any other purpose but then that it pleased me in 2003, and Synchronicity has led it to be on a tape, and that to Fernando to shoot like it feels like the little song that could, like this one did not want to just disappear, get lost. And so even though it's sort of divorced from, I don't have any strong feelings about it. It's not saying something, it's not that what happened in it didn't happen to me. It's a flight of fancy, but it might actually be the best of all of them.
Excellent, excellent. Well, like I said, I'm gonna have links so that people can find your music down below. And it's always interesting to figure out what's connected somebody to a musician, right?
Hmm.
Which is the song that got them started. I recently, I listened to a fair amount of satellite radio, and I'll take a picture of who's ever on the screen if I like the song, and I go back and I'll buy it. I'm like, okay, now I got to go down a rabbit hole. So you never know where what you're gonna get attracted to, and then where it's gonna take you. Let's pivot a little bit. Tell me about Radio 8 Ball.
Okay.
I want to
Yeah.
know. I want to understand that because it sounds pretty interesting, and it's definitely a kind of a different approach to some subject matter.
Well, first of all, it's a game that anyone can do, and maybe some of you have already played it without realizing it was Radio 8 Ball. But the game of Radio 8 Ball is you ask a question and then pick a song at random. Back in, you know, when we began this on the radio, that meant putting a CD in a CD player and pressing a shuffle function, and a song would be randomly chosen, and then talking about how the song is an answer to the question, or as I came to like really see it more, not so much as an answer, but finding the synchronicities between the song and the question. And so that started we started that in 1998. I say we because I'm talking about me and the Pop Oracle, which is sort of the spirit that guides this whole thing. Um, I don't mean a specific like corporeal spirit, but the zeitgeist, the spirit, the energy of synchronicity, and this container that I've created. Um, so it started as a late night show where we would invite people to call in and ask questions, play a CD on shuffle function, talk about the answer. Then we started having musical guests on the show. They would bring in a list of 8 songs, and the person would call in and ask a question and pick a number between 1 and 8. The artist would play the song, and then they would not just talk about uh, how the song that we listened to related to this question, but how their experience of writing it or whatever their personal experience of the song, how that might inform uh, that question. And that turned out to be very, very valuable, not just for the people asking the questions, but for the songwriters, because you could see them. Like, I wrote this song about this heartbreak, but they're asking if their dog's ever going to come home, and as they're writing it, they're just seeing. What I loved was having songwriters see how people really listen to their songs, not listening, thinking about my problems that I wrote it from, but thinking about their problems that they're thinking about and how my song might fit into their narrative in a way that I could never imagine. And we as listeners know that. Of course, we know that. But I think as songwriters, we forget that they're not listening and thinking, well, what did Andras mean? You know, they're thinking of what's in their life. They're not even thinking about me for the most part, of the singer or the writer. Um, and then we started doing it live on stage, and that was really fun. And then we started having celebrities Skype in. So we've had people like John C. Reilly and Weird Al Yankovic and Patricia Arquette and Seth Green and on and on. Lots of different people Skyping into a stage in a theater in Seattle and then asking questions. And we'd spin a big wheel and the artist would answer the questions. And then that turned into a podcast for Starburns Industries, which is Dan Harmon's company, the guy who created Community and um, Rick and Morty, and did it as a podcast there for a long time. And in the midst of all that, created an app which you can still get if you are an iPhone user. It's the Radio 8 Ball app. It's free. It doesn't, we don't collect any information. But you can ask it a question and shake it, and it'll play one of over 2,000 songs recorded live on the show over the years of doing the show. It's a project that I'm actually kind of separated from now. I put in 2 decades of hard work building it into something, and I stand by it, and I love it. And I'll just close off on talking about it by saying that unfortunately I found like we I tried to keep it going through COVID, and somewhere in the middle of COVID, it got to the point where no one, like the kind of questions that we like to ask on Radio 8 Ball, which are just wild, you can ask anything. There was just so little oxygen to ask questions and be whimsical about it, like without it setting off all these alarms. And a lot of that ended up coming on to me, like projecting onto me. So the last couple times I've done Radio 8 Ball, it's ended up going really great in the room, but then afterwards going very poorly for me personally. People blaming me for any discomfort they might have felt by experiencing reality, and not just reality, but when we're dealing with synchronicity, you're dealing with a psychological reality and almost a psychedelic reality. So all the work is there for Radio 8 Ball, and I hope that we're going to find a time at some point in the future where playing games with synchronicity and being whimsical with trying on ideas and experimenting with being audacious is welcome in a large group of people. And I'll say one last thing: if you do go down the rabbit hole, if you listen to this, you do go down the rabbit hole of Radio 8 Ball, and you really, really are really inspired by it. I am strongly of the opinion that the next chapter of Radio 8 Ball has to be other hosts, not me. Uh, just partly just because I'm older and I'm not as in touch with modern music, and partly because I've been wounded by the process for and people who are fresh and inspired could really bring this thing to life. And if you are such a person and you want to talk about it, I'm easy to find.
There you go. And they can always put something in the comments down below. So
Yeah.
I love that story. I'd never really heard of the game before. So I appreciate that. I will definitely make sure there's at least a link to the Apple,
The app, and
Apple app.
if you go to radio8ball.com, you can find all the like not yeah, you can find all the podcasts.
Nice.
There's a lot, any place you get podcasts, you can listen to them. And the way I recommend it is pick an artist or a celebrity that you recognize in it and start there. There's a lot of people who are a lot of great musicians on it who are very unknown, um, but are incredibly powerful, and some who are, there are some very cool and much and accomplished and somewhat successful artists as well on the show.
Nice. Well, I'll make sure that's down below. One of the things we love to, when you talk about synchronicity and putting good things out in the world and all that other great stuff, one of the things that we know is that if it sits just inside your head and the world doesn't know about it, there's not much that can be done about something. And I'm always interested in an artist who, if whether they have a vision board or a bucket list or whatever they want to call that, that peak goal of achievement when it comes to working with another artist. If you had the chance to get into a studio for one day to be creative with one other musician, who would it be and why then?
Oh, there's no question. It would be John Bryan. You know who John Bryan is? Jonbrion. He there's a lot of different ways you might know him. He's achieved great success as a film composer. Did the music for Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love. That's a really high point. I Heart Huckabees, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. There are others in there, but those are, I think, probably the big massive ones. As a producer, he produced Fiona Apple's first record, Rufus Wainwright's first record. He's produced so many. He was part Amy Mann. He was part of Amy Mann's band co-produced I'm with Stupid. But her first two big solo records, and then also all of her work on Magnolia. Um, and in the 90s, he had this regular show at Largo on Fairfax in LA. And what he did on those shows was, to me, some of it has people do it now. He was the first person I saw to like work with loops and build a song on stage. But a lot of people who do that do it like they know what they're building. What I would watch was him build a song on stage based upon cues, like people shouting out things from the audience, and build a song around a new title and just do this pop wizardry that was, blowing me away, but not just me. The people who were like, I saw like Elvis Costello was there once, and to check him out, and Elliott Smith hung out there all the time. John worked a lot with Elliott Smith. Like just all the best musicians were there to sort of either participate or gawk or sneer. But he had a profound effect on me at that point. It was sort of the moment where I realized just being a songwriter is not enough. Like he just raised the bar. He's the closest thing that I've experienced to a Prince level talent. But also with the odd ability to do it all from the point of being a sideman. Even though he's a great performer on his own, I think his greatest trick is that I've seen him do is, and this is why I want to work with him, is I'll watch someone get on stage with him who maybe is not up to his level of musicianship, and I watch over the course of that song how John figures out what he can play to elevate the other person. Um, yeah, he's a phenomenal talent, and for people who aren't aware of him, I recommend to look him up. And I did some of the legwork on this. I produced another podcast called The World Is Wrong, an extremely positive podcast where we celebrate films and film artists the world is wrong about. And we did an episode about the film Punch Drunk Love as, in my theory, a film that is it's about the effect of John Bryan on Paul Thomas Anderson, which is a longer conversation. You can listen to that podcast for it. But we did a second installment of that where we just went through John Bryan's career as a sideman, as a producer, as an artist in his own right. And it is, to me, one of like it is the most important musical career of my generation, I believe, particularly because it acts as a tributary to so many great other things. So if I could spend a day in the studio, and I should also say, Fernando Perdomo is producing a tribute. That's how we really connected as John Bryan fans, and he's producing a tribute to John Bryan's album Meaningless, which came out 25 years ago. And I'll be covering the song Hook, Line, and Sinker on that. And there's a lot of other great people on that. But it's a very easy question for me to answer. There's no one on the planet I would rather spend a day in the studio with than John Bryant.
Well, I think that anyone watching us who is attached to John Bryant needs to demand that he bring you into the studio with him. Let's put it
No,
out.
I
We've got
make
it
no
out there in the
demands on
world.
this man. If he's
We
ever
put it out in the
inspired,
world. If there is dog walker, if they pick up his dry cleaning, if he sees him at the coffee shop, if you know him and you're connected, let's make Andras' dream come true. The way that we kind of wrap things up here is, number one, the importance of supporting an artist. Go out and purchase his music. The links are going to be down below. When you see him playing somewhere near you, buy a ticket, buy whatever merch you can. Support every artist and show them that you value what they bring to the world, because creativity, although it may seem free, is not. It takes time, effort, energy, and resources to bring music to you, whether it's a whole album, whether it's a song a month, getting on the road, all of it costs something, and you should be supporting it. With that said, Andras, when you're not making your own music, are there, we're just sitting here hanging out, getting to know each other, and you're like, hey, when I'm not making music, maybe I'm out on a walk, maybe I'm at the gym or in my car or something. Are there a couple of artists that you've been listening to lately that you're like, dude, you got to check them out? Here's why I'm loving them. You got one or two of them you can, off the top of your head, you can share?
well, I already gave my rant for John Bryan, so definitely Jonbrion. He doesn't need your help, but you need his music in your life. Um, I'm also a big fan and supporter of a woman named Anara George. She is the daughter of Lowell George, and I think of the band Little Feat, and I think of her as like one of the few second generation rockers who actually is artistically surpassed her ancestor, as great as he was. She has a band called The Bird and the Bee that was pretty popular. I think you might be aware of her, but but she's also continued doing her own solo stuff, and it's always really interesting. She has a deep sense of sort of theatricality that reaches into a pre-rock and roll sort of songbook, but she works with the greatest musicians, has a great sensitivity, and she just has that ability. When she's singing, you're smiling and there are tears in your eyes.
Nice.
She's that great. Similar to the feeling I would get from a Ricky Lee Jones. um, and then I'd like to give a shout out to one of my favorite songwriters. He doesn't write a lot as much, but he was a big inspiration on me. A guy named Danny Peck. He's been making music for a long time. If you look up his stuff has a really profound and sophisticated political conscience, and an incredible voice. And yeah, and he's just I'd like to encourage I'd like people to encourage him to put more of his music out there, because he's really great. And I would be in getting a lot of trouble if I didn't shout out my friends at MJ's Unique Social Club, uh, particularly a great artist named Bobby Warren. I've been helping him put out singles for the first time. He's only sort of put out CDs and LPs on labels that are defunct, but we put out a single of his called "I Started to Cry." That's on all the streaming services. He only plays really in LA these days. If you're in LA, I'm putting on a show with him on June 11th, this coming Thursday, with him and a couple of the other like old timer greats from MJ's Unique Social Club. And if you're in LA, I'm almost every Sunday night at MJ's Unique Social Club, and I'll play two songs. It'll be fine. But if you're in LA, you want to see the truest old school blues, R&B, and soul from the real masters, not the famous masters, the ones who put in the hard miles. That is the place to go, and that's what's really been inspiring me the most over the last year, is these old cats who just still Man, they rock so hard. They'd inspire the hell out of you if you saw them. Yeah.
Then I will make sure the next time I'm in LA that I stay over a Sunday, and that is on my list. Andres, I'll
Yes.
be honest with you. I have a feeling you and I could probably go on for hours. So I'm gonna make you this promise. We're gonna do this again. We'll pick a bunch of subjects at
Okay.
random,
Yeah.
and we'll chit chat about things. I have a feeling you and I could go down some deep musical rabbit holes together on another episode. So all the best on every single you're putting out. Have a great 4th of July gig. I
Thank
hope
you.
that I all right. Celebrate the 250th in your own way. Make it yours. For all of you who have stuck with us, check him out. The links are going to be below. And as I always end these with, please, now more than ever, and it matters so much, give yourself some peace and love and grace every single day. And then go give it to someone else, because what you will get in return fills you up and makes every single day that much better. So until we get a chance to hang again, Andras, it's been great getting to know you. We're going to do this again. Everyone else, thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot.